All right, good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Looks like I got started just on time here. Normally I try to start a little earlier. Anyway, the training will be about an hour and a half, give or take. And we'll basically be covering almost all the Dash features. We do this every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. We record the training, so if you can't stay for the whole thing, you can always come back to our YouTube channel later and continue from where you left off or start from the beginning. You can see previous week's ones as well. It also allows you to get the link later and share it with other people who you want to make system admins. All right, so here we're on our Dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there from the virtualpbx.com website. There's a blue bar towards the top of the page that has a login link there. You can just click there. I do recommend bookmarking this page. To log in, we need your email address, your password, and then the account name. The account name, typically your company name. If you don't have your password, over here to the bottom right, there's a forgot your info link. You can click on that. We still need your email address, right? That's going to be unique for each user, right? Each user has their own email address. And then we need one of these two pieces of information. So we need either the account name, right, the company name, or an account phone number, right? So phone number your customers called to reach your system. And then you click on reset password. The system will email you, and in that email will have a password reset link. It gets you logged in temporarily, so you can change that password, but it will then log you back out. And then you'll be back here. So you can type in that new password and then click on the Remember Me box. And there we go. All right. So by default, this is taking me right to the dashboard page, and that's because I've logged into this account several times. For you, on your first attempt, it's actually going to take you someplace else. It's going to take you to your account page, which you can get to by clicking on your name up here at the top. Right, so it's going to start you off here. The Dash wizard's going to come up with some pop-ups telling you where, what you can do. Like here, for instance, you can change your own password. Now, as an admin, you also have these account level settings over here to the left. The main thing that's changed is people typically change the time zone. Now, on your accounts, you also have a billing section. It'll be underneath this user area here. And that's where you'll have things like your invoices, where you can change your credit card. You could see your service plan, and you can also update the billing contact, right? The person who gets invoices and the person who has actually the full control of the account. When you're done here, you click on Close over here to the top right, and you'll be back here on the dashboard page. So along the top, again, you can click on your name to get back to those account pages. Right? Many of you will have a D&D toggle to the right of your name, right? D&D standing for Do Not Disturb. My user does not have this because I'm in an Acd queue. All right, so if you assign yourself to an Acd queue, you will lose the D&D toggle because those two features do not play well together. Then we got the little help icon here, right? A little question mark. And there's these sub tabs here. Chat with us will open up a chat window, typically in the bottom right corner of your browser, so you can chat with a support staff member. Learn more, this will open up a new tab and take you right to the support pages, right? So you can look up specific guides on a particular feature. The online store opens up a new tab. That takes you to store.virtualpbx.com, where you can order things like a white phone or a router, etc. And then this last one is the web phone. This one doesn't always show up, and that's because it will only show up once you've added a web phone as a device to your user. And the web phone simply will open up, or this web phone link will open up a new tab to take you to webphone.virtualpbx.net, where it will ask you to log in using your Dash login information. And then you can use Chrome or Firefox to make and receive calls from a computer. Next up, we got the 3 horizontal line icon. We sometimes refer to it as the hamburger icon or the menu icon. This takes you to other features of Dash. We're primarily going to be in the dashboard here today, but we will get in briefly to these other sections. And then this last icon here to the right is the logout icon. Here in the middle, we have total users, right? These are people on my account who are making and receiving calls. Most of our plans at VirtualPBX are based on the number of users, right? So the more users you have, the larger your bill is going to be. Then I have total devices. I have 30, and then a breakdown, right? So first up, I have a cell phone, right? We're all pretty familiar with those, probably more than we want to be. Then I have soft phone. Soft phone just means it's a software application on a device, right? Computer, tablet, smartphone that uses your internet connection to make and receive calls, right? So it's a VoIP phone, right? In case you don't know, VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. It just means using your internet connection to make and receive calls, right? A soft phone is a kind of VoIP phone. The soft phone list here, that's going to include both the VirtualPBX soft phone and then any other VoIP phone you might have, right? So if you're using a third-party application. Then we have the web phone, and then lastly we have here the SIP phone. A SIP phone is a physical VoIP phone, right? It sits on your desk. It's like a Yealink phone, Cisco, Polycom, etc. Then I have unregistered devices. It's saying that one of my SIP phones is unregistered, meaning it's not connected, right? That could be it's not plugged in, right? It could mean there's a network problem. Could even mean that person is dealing with an internet outage. All the system knows is that we can't send calls to it. All right, total numbers. These are total phone numbers on the account. I have 25. Generally speaking, our plans include anywhere from 2 to 15 phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price, right? So I'm paying an overage for at least 5 or 10 phone numbers here. Then we have a breakdown of spare numbers and assigned numbers, right? An assigned number means I'm using it, right? Someone can dial that number and speak to someone or leave a voicemail or be joining a conference or send a fax, right? Spare number counts towards my allotment. I'm not using it right now, right? It could be because I'm saving a phone number for a future promotion, right? So like I have an Easter promotion that I'm going to start, but I haven't started it yet, right? Or I had a Valentine's Day promotion that just ended. I took that number out of service because I don't want to get calls on a promotion that's no longer running. All right, then down here, I have USDID and US toll-free. US toll-free actually is US Canada toll-free, right? It's an 800 number, 888 all the way down to 833. USDID, that just means a US local phone number, right? So that can be a number in Houston, Texas, or a number in Elmira, New York, wherever you want. You can have international phone numbers on your account. If you're interested in adding one, you need to send an email to our porting team. That's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. And they'll need to know the city and country that you want a phone number in. If there are additional requirements from that country, the porting team will let you know. And once we get those documents, we submit them, and then we're able to add an international number to your account. All right, conference bridges, I have 3. That means I've enabled 3 of my users to host or moderate a conference. Now we're going to over here to the right where it says main number. I can't click or highlight it simply because it will take me to that section. But these 4 phone numbers up here, they all behave the same way. They all go to the same location, right? They're all going to have the same main greeting. The conference number, I have 1 of these. Now you can have multiple conference room numbers if you want, but this is the phone number that everyone calls to get to the conference rooms, whether they're my staff members, my vendors, or my clients. Fax box number, you can have 1 main fax box number, and this is the number you receive faxes on. All right, the company directory, right? This downloads a CSV file, which will have your users, their extensions, and their primary device. And actually, I might have all their devices. I haven't looked at it recently. Then we have the soft phone directory. The soft phone directory is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. You download this file, you then upload it to our soft phone app on a Windows or Mac PC, and you'll be able to see the status of the other users in relation to their soft phone, right? So if your entire staff is using the VirtualPBX soft phone and that's it, then you can tell when they're on a call, right? It will say they're on a call and that they're using the soft phone, right? If you're in a mixed environment, right? So you have some people who have Yealink phones and some people who have the soft phone, and you have people who have both, right? Well, again, you're only going to be able to tell if they're on the soft phone, right? You won't be able to see the status of any physical VoIP phones. All right, store discount code. Just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount code for use within our online store, right? That's store.virtualpbx.com. And then here we have the account realm. The account realm is unique for each account. This is used in a couple things. One, it's one of the pieces of information you would need to program a third-party soft phone application. The other thing it's used for is for faxing out. So on Dash, to send a fax out, you actually create an email, right? Create an email like you normally do, right? Like you're emailing Cousin Bob, right? You click new email, you put in the to field, instead of putting Bob's email address, you put the plus sign, the number 1, the area code and phone number you're faxing to, the @ symbol, and then your realm. Then you would just attach a PDF or TIFF file and click send, right? The system's not going to look at the subject line or the body of the email. It looks at the to field, the from field, and the attachment, and only one attachment per email. Okay, up here we have the caller ID. This is your company caller ID. Now, my streaming software here doesn't like pull downs, but you can select any of your main numbers here. Whichever number you select, that becomes your default number for several different features, but most notably for your VoIP phones, when they make an outbound call, this will be the caller ID they display. All right. Now, the company caller ID name, this allows you to put text in front of your caller, or as part of your caller ID. You can input up to 15 characters. That includes spaces and special characters. All right. Then you come down here for the company emergency information, right? E911. It just wants a North American address. And then you would click on Save Changes. Now, once you click on Save Changes, right, the company caller ID name information is transmitted to the other carriers who support CNAME. It takes them about 3 business days to update their servers. Right? Now, once you do so, you make an outbound call from your VoIP phones. That information will, the company caller ID information, right, that name, gets passed along with your phone number as part of the caller ID. Not every carrier your call goes through, or could go through, supports CNAME, which means that that information will get dropped out when it gets to your destination. The other thing to be aware of, when you're calling cell phones, your company CNAME information may not go through. Right? The cell phone carriers, they control what shows up on the displays on their phones on their network. In some cases, those cell phone carriers want their subscribers to pay for CNAME information to show up on their cell phones. Right? So most people probably don't want to pay an extra $5 to $10 per month just to have company caller ID information show up on their phones. So when you make calls to cell phone users, it's very likely your company name information will not show up. All right, hold music. On Dash, you can have your own hold music. Now, hold music on Dash is defined as when a call has reached a user and that user has pressed hold on their VoIP phone, that's when the hold music file will play. You can upload your own files. Right, you just need to find it on your computer. Dash will play back .mp3, .wav, and .ogg files. You're going to want to make sure they're recorded in mono, not in stereo, and that they're under 1 megabyte in file size. All right, hours is actually part of main number, so let's just go to main number. All right, main company numbers. Right? These are those 4 phone numbers that all act and behave the same way. If you decide you don't want to use a number as a main number any longer, you can click on Assign next to it. And I can remove these features, assuming my mouse will work with me here. and now that number is no longer a main number. Now it's still on my account, right? It still counts towards my allotment. I've just removed it as being a main number. That means I can reassign it someplace else. Now, for places where you can add a number, you usually will have the choice of add from spare or buy new numbers, right? Add from spare means it's a number you already have on your account, right? You're reusing a number. And you would just click on the box in front of it and then add selected numbers, and then it would show up here. For buy new numbers, you have options for local and toll-free. Toll-free, you choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with. You click on search. And you can then add a number you want. You can add multiple at any spot, right? You have them, they'll show you how many numbers you have, the actual numbers, the option to delete, and then you would click on buy numbers. We'll do the full process here under local numbers. For local numbers, you need to know the area code. So for instance, 310 is one of the LA area codes that's been exhausted, right? For those big metropolitan areas, you will run into this on at least one of the area codes typically. It just means there's nothing currently available. Now, in that instance, you'd want to search for what's called an overlay area code or a nearby area code, like an area code that was split off. And then do a search, and then you can see, oh, now I have other numbers, right? 424 is an overlay for 310. And I can then choose a number that I like. Try to choose one most people don't normally go with. All right, so as in my cart, I can buy the number, and now the system's verifying that number was truly available, and because it's a dynamic list, right? You're competing with other people in real time, technically. But once it verified it's there, it then adds it to my account, and in this case, it's adding it right to where I wanted it to be. Now, you got a little gear icon here. This is where you can adjust the caller ID, right? So the outbound CNAM, as well as turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAM. Right? That way it shows up on your VoIP phones for your staff members. For each phone number, they can have your individual E911 address. This allows you then to assign your VoIP phones to a particular phone number for E911 purposes. So that way they have the correct address associated with them. And Prepend is a VoIP feature. You can add text. Right? And if I click Save Changes here, for example, now La La Land will show up on my users of VoIP phones and on their display as part of the caller ID. This lets them know, oh, this is about the Los Angeles area that we just expanded to. All right, next up, we have office hour strategy. You have 24-hour open office or custom office hours. So for new signups, you start off as 24-hour open office. I chose this account to have custom office hours. For each day of the week that you're open, you put a check mark in front of that day. And then you set your open hours in 24-hour or military time in these boxes here to the right. You do have the ability to say you're closed for lunch if you want to be. We'll just click here and then again enter your lunch hours in that 24-hour or military time format. And then once you're done, you click on Save Changes. Office holidays. First, you need to decide, are you closed for holidays? If you are closed for holidays, oops, let's put that check mark back. Then you over here to the right, you click on Add Holiday, and then you have your options here for single day, date range, or advanced. Right, single day, pretty easy. You give it a name like New Year's Eve. You select the month and the date. Right, click Save Changes. Right, date range, like I have here for Christmas break. Again, you give it a name, a start date, and an end date. Now notice that there is no year indicator, and that's part of why I have New Year's Eve and New Year's Day have their own individual single day holidays, so that way I don't confuse the system. And then for advanced, we can use Thanksgiving as an example here, where I select the month, Yeah, in the middle pull down here, you have 1st through 5th as well as last, and then the day of the week, right? So 3rd Thursday of November. And after each one, I suggest clicking Save Changes. All right, incoming call handling. Now, this refers to our main numbers, right? These open hours, after hours, and holidays, that's what we just set up, right? Under office hours strategy and holidays, respectively. But I have these same basic options, right? So my open hours, I can have them calls go straight to the virtual receptionist. And this is a link, so I click on it. Then we've got my main menu. This is what people can press on their phone to navigate through my phone system, right? And then I click Add Route. And this pull down, you have a 0 through 9, the star key, and the default action. And then the second pull down, you just tell it where you want the system to go, right? Or where does that button press go? And that is, the smart directory. You can send it to a specific person, right? So a specific user. You can send it to a call queue if you're making use of Acd queues. You can send it to a specific phone. Now, this isn't recommended just because if you send it to a phone that doesn't have built-in voicemail, right? That phone call can ring and ring and ring until the inbound caller decides to hang up. And that might not be a great user experience. You can send it to a media file, and that just simply means you're playing a greeting file of some sort. So like if you say, press 1 to hear our hours of operation, right? You would have that media file play. Once it's done playing, the call will end. Get through that. You can send it to a group, right? This is a department. Or you can send it to a voicemail box. In this case. Now, each of these types has a little icon, right? So multiple people, that's a group. Single person, that's a user, right? That's a voicemail. That's the directory. There's a few others. Greetings, this is where you would create a greeting, right? Or where you would, and the greeting, what you'd use that for is, hey, welcome the customer to your system, right? Thank you for calling, that sort of thing. But you also want to give your customer instructions, right? Where do you want them to go? Or what do you want them to press to get through your system? So first up, we have text-to-speech, right? You just type in what you want the system to say, and it will then read it off. Now, this is in a computerized or robotic voice. You have up to 250 characters to work with, not words. You can sometimes go over that, but 250 has worked consistently for me. The other thing to keep in mind is each time you click update and then save changes, the system will save that text-to-speech greeting, but it reuses the same file name. So you can literally have, 5 or more of the same file name showing up, but they'll be different, right? The system will use, in this case, main open hours menu TTS, right? All right. Next up, we have you upload your own file, right? .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono, under 1 megabyte. You can choose from anything you've already added to the account. So like here, I have a main menu TTS. I don't know which one this is, right? So, my recommendation is if you do make use of the text-to-speech, after you create it, you're going to want to go to the Greetings tab and change the name, right? So create one. After you hit update and save changes, go to Greetings tab, change the name. That way you can, to something you'll recognize, even if you're just saying, open greeting and the date. At least it'll be something you can recognize. So if you need to flip back to it, you can do so. Now you can record it over the phone. Now by default, when it says pick up a phone registered on this account, it means a VoIP phone, right? Because that way it knows it's tied or registered to this account, right? It's associated with it. If you want to use a cell phone or a landline, then under settings, where it says allow outside recording here, you want to turn that on. So now this will allow you to call in with a cell phone or landline. You will still need this PIN number. This PIN number changes for each account and for each time of day. Now, this PIN number is specific to my open hours, right? Because that's the menu I'm in right now, here at the top. If it's a new account, when you first call into your main number, right, it will tell you that a greeting has not been set up for this menu and then prompts you for the PIN number. You enter the PIN number and then it walks you through recording over the phone. If, however, you already have a greeting in place, right? Let's say your organization has been with VirtualPBX for a couple of years. You just got hired on a couple of weeks ago and your boss says, hey, you're in charge of the phone system and we need to change the greeting, right? But boss says, come up with a script and then change the greeting. When you call into your main number, right, the existing greeting will play. You can still enter the PIN number. It will still walk you through recording it over the phone, right? But that greeting that you first heard when you called in, let's say we'll call that greeting A, right? When you call in over the phone, you're overwriting the content of greeting file A with your new script, right? So greeting file A, the name stays the same. What's in it changes. Sometimes that's exactly what you want to do, but sometimes that's not. For let's say you're changing your normal main greeting that you've been using for most of the year, but you want to have a special Easter greeting, right? So you call in, you record it over the phone. Well, your normal main greeting is now gone. The file name will still be the same, but now you have an Easter greeting there instead. So that's something to be aware of. All right, professional recording services. When you click order, this will open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings. They have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They do their own billing. They deliver to you via email. So then you can then upload your own file. All right, now we're on the settings. All right. So these first two are related, right? Number of retries on missed dial and dialing timeout. So number of retries on missed dial, that means how many times the inbound caller can make a mistake. Right? The dialing timeout is how long the system listens after it hears the first button press before it assumes someone is done. So, for example, someone calls in and they hear the greeting and for whatever reasons they press 5. Right? That's not a valid menu option. Now, if that's not a valid extension number either, right, then the system will wait for 5 seconds because it's going to see if the inbound caller is going to enter additional numbers after that first number 5, right? So like, say someone wanted to dial 525 for that extension number, right? That's why the system would wait. Now, after that 5 count, it says, oh, you meant 5. That's not a valid option. You get 1 retry. So now the main greeting plays again. Right, so that the inbound caller can make a second attempt. If they press 5 a second time, right, system still waits 5 seconds, then it says, okay, that's not a valid option. You don't have any more retries, so now I'm going to send you to the default action, right? That's what I have right down here, which sends them to the Smart PBX directory. Now, if I remove the default action, after that second attempt, and that second count to 5, says, well, there's no default action. 5 is not a valid option. It will then play a message saying, we did not recognize your entry, and then say goodbye. We already did outside recording. Allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on, and basically means the system will listen for extension numbers to be dialed, right? So if you turn this off, that means your inbound caller, they can only press 0, 1, or 2. Anything else is invalid. And then down here, we have the suppress playing of the invalid entry. If you don't want that message to come up after that failed retry attempt, you can turn this on, right? And now the system will just end the call. By the way, this is the default for the system. All right, so any changes you make to your main menu, your settings, or your greetings, you click Save, and then you click Save Changes here, back under Incoming Call Handling. All right. The second option is a live operator answer option, right? What that means is you're giving a staff member or multiple staff members a chance to answer the call first, right? If they're not able to do so, then the call goes to the virtual receptionist. So for instance, I can have call, right? In this case, I have Aaron selected, but what I might want to do, for instance, let's go down to my groups. Right, I can send it to my front desk group. All right, if I click Save Changes. So now calls come into my front desk group. This could be, anywhere from say 2 to 10 people, for example. Right, so call comes in, it rings their phones. If none of them are able to get to it, because let's say it's a particular busy time, then that inbound caller goes to the virtual receptionist. Now, this is my open hours one still, because that's the main section we're under right now. So it's the same attendant we were looking at. Right, if we look at the after hours, we look at this virtual receptionist, right, it's slightly different. And you can have a completely different greeting, right, because it's your after hours versus your open hours. Holidays, right, you have the same basic options. This third option here, right, you can offer it to a user, a group, a specific device, a call queue. You can have a media file play. You have one additional option that isn't in the second option, and that's skip to voicemail. So basically you're saying, hey, call comes in, send it to Josh's voicemail. This we normally see for like a seasonal business or like a small business, like, a single person or 2 people, like, hey, we want to take vacation. Right, this is a pull down here on the second option here. So you can select users, groups, devices, queues. You can select a media file, but I don't recommend it because that means your inbound caller is going to hear 2 greetings back to back, and that can throw people off. All right, main conference number. Again, you can add for and spare, buy new numbers, so you can have multiple conference numbers. You have a custom greeting. It's just text to speech. You click enable, you type in what you want it to say. Even if you don't have this enabled, the system will say welcome to the conference and prompt the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. Main fax box, you can have only the one number, right? So if you don't have it here, you'd be add from spare or buy new would show up. Once you've added a number, you want to click on edit the fax box. And then first up, you have the inbound notification email, right? This is the email address or for the person who's going to get all the emails for when a fax comes into the system. Now, if someone happens to dial your fax number or your fax box number and then hang up when they hear the fax tones, that will still generate an email saying that there was a failed inbound fax attempt. So that's something you want to keep or be aware of. The second field, right, the email permissions, which, wow, my mouse is being weird, right? So you can put an email in this box if you are so inclined, and what's really designed for is you can put your company domain here. When you put your company domain, that means anyone in your company who has an email address, right, they can send a fax out on the system without being a user on your account. All right, next up we have auto attendance. Now, auto attendance is a plan-specific feature, meaning it's available on some plans and not other plans. If you're interested in this, you're going to want to talk to our account services team, and they can let you know if that's available on your plan or what the cost would be to change your plans. Now, there's 2 reasons why you would want multiple auto attendants. Excuse me. The first is if you own or run several businesses, right? It's each of those businesses would have their own main greeting, their own phone numbers. but you have the same staff answering calls for these multiple businesses, right? Then you can essentially have them on the same account. The other reason would be if you want to make use of submenuing, meaning you want to have one for English, two for Spanish, right? And then those two menu options go to additional attendants where they have an English greeting and a Spanish greeting, and menu options that go to the appropriate staff members. Now, to make an attendant, you click Add Attendant. You give it a name and an extension number, right? Then you click on Create Attendant. The extension number is for your staff's use, right? So if, let's say my main business is a cleaning business and someone calls in, they actually wanted to get to my dog walking business, right? My staff members could then transfer to this extension number, and that caller would then go to my dog walking business. Now, when you click on the name of an attendant, it starts off as unavailable in main menu. This means it's a standalone attendant. Right now, if I click this and change it to available in main menu, right, then click on Save Changes. Now it becomes a sub-menu option, and that means it can show up in several different places. So we'll save that as is. Attendants can have their own phone number, right? They can have multiple, right? So you can add from spare or by new. Once an attendant is created, you can click on the little wrench icon here under Settings. And then you'll see, right, it has open hours, after hours, and holidays. Now, this information matches what we set up under main number, right? So that means all your businesses have to have the same hours of operation. Right? But beyond that, you just click on Virtual Receptionist. You add your main menu options, right? Your add routes. You click Create a Greeting, and you adjust your settings. Then you would click on Save and Save Changes. Next up is the Devices tab. Right? It shows all your devices on the account. Green means it's registered, meaning that as far as we're concerned, we should be able to send calls to that device and get calls from it. Right? It should be working. Red means it's unregistered. That means we can't send calls to it. Now, that could be people haven't logged into their soft phone or their web phone, for example. Could be more problematic. If your device is black, that means you did this. You clicked off next to it, and now it's black, right? That means you just temporarily disabled the phone. You can add devices here, right? So SIP phone, this is that physical VoIP phone. You have these manufacturers to choose from, right? Some of them have a lot of models to work with, some not as many. But in all cases, you want to find the make and model. You want to give it a name, right? You know, George's phone, right? And then we need the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each phone. Usually it's a sticker on the back or the bottom of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, usually under its basic settings or its status settings, they should have a MAC setting or MAC field, and that will give you the information you need here. You will then create device, and then eventually under users, you would add the device to a user. Now, within the dashboard, that's all you need. However, you actually need to get into the phone's web user interface, right? The web UI. And you need to add a URL. Basically, you're telling the phone, hey, go here to get your config file, right? The phone will do so. It will download that config file. It will reboot a couple times, typically, and then it should show up as a green device. For the specifics of that, you're going to want to go to our support pages and look for the document called Auto Provisioning Phones. It's going to have screenshots for all these manufacturers, the proper syntax for that URL, usually a couple settings to double check. Right? But the main thing, it has screenshots of what to look for, so it's easier to find. Right? Adding a cell phone or landline is basically the same. You give it a name, right? Angela's phone, and then you put +1 area code and phone number. And then you click on Create Device. Right? So here we have a phone. If we go to Advanced Options, right? This is the default setup for a cell phone or landline on the system. Now, when Dash sends a call to a cell phone or landline, right, that phone's going to ring, right? Hopefully the person will pick up. When you pick up, you're going to hear, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you are telling the system, yes, you are there, and yes, you want to take this call, right? It then connects the call to you. You can speak to that person. Now, if, for instance, you add the cell phone, this device, but it's not your actual cell phone. Let's say you're creating a phone number, you're adding a phone number here for your after hours answering service, right? It's an automated answering service. It doesn't know to press 1, right? That's going to be a problem. So what you would want to do is click here in front of allow use of cell phone's voicemail. Now, when we offer the call to this phone number, instead of having to press 1, when we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call. Now, if you did this on your actual cell phone, what could happen is if your cell phone voicemail picks up, right, that inbound caller will go to your cell phone voicemail, right? Some people want their callers to end up in their personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people definitely do not. So that's something to be aware of. The other thing that sometimes comes up is this one here, keep provisional caller ID. So let's say customer Mary is calling you through your system. It rings to your phone. You see customer Mary's phone number. You don't recognize it. So you let it go to voicemail because you're tired of hearing about your car warranty. Right? Maybe you're able to connect with her later. Maybe you can't, right? For whatever reasons. So what you can do is uncheck this. So now instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number, you instead see your main phone number. Let's go back to our dashboard here real quick. Right? This phone number, this 408 number that I have selected, that's what would show up on my cell phone's display. So now I would have a chance to know, oh, this is a work-related call. I probably want to take it. All right, soft phone. Now, when you add a soft phone on the devices page, this means you're adding a third-party soft phone, meaning you're not using the VirtualPBX soft phone application. You're using someone else's, right? But you would give it a device name. You would copy and paste the SIP username, right? You click on the SIP password box to see the SIP password. You would copy and paste that, and then you would copy and paste your realm, right? Those 3 pieces of information are what you need to provision or program that third-party application. If you want to add a VirtualPBX soft phone, you need to add that on a user directly, and we'll get to that when we get to the user section. On the software or on the devices page here, you can click on the wrench icon. One thing to double check under advanced is the audio. You typically want to see, at least for physical phones, you want these 2 codecs, G711A and G711U. You can also make use of Opus, which is typically what we use for the soft phones. And then you click Save Changes. The other thing that comes up, external caller ID, right? You can select one of your phone numbers for this particular device to show one of your other phone numbers as its outbound caller ID, as well as your emergency information, or E911. All right, Greetings tab shows all your media files on the account, right? Shows you the name, the source, or TTS means text to speech. Upload means you uploaded the file. And recording means you recorded it over the phone. Notice here I have some more main open hours menu TTS files. You can download these files, so that way you can listen to them to see if they're relevant. If you click on the little wrench icon, you can then change the file name or delete it if it's not relevant. Groups, right? This is sometimes referred to as ring groups or hunt groups, right? Departments. You can create a group up here at the top. You give it a name and an extension number. Then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group. And then you click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on its name. Right? You can change the name. You also have this group call attempts. Right? This is how many times the system will offer the call to your group members. Over here to the right, you got little up and down arrows, so you can increase or decrease the number of attempts. And then save changes. Next up, we have the members box. Right, this shows my members going down, and then across up top here, these are timestamps. This last one you can edit. By default, it's set to 120 seconds, right? 2 minutes. Now, these are sliders, right? So you can click and drag the sliders. So I can do, instead of having it go down in this order, I can instead do what's called blast ringing or ring all, right? So now it rings everybody at once. Some things to know about calls that go to a group. One, your users can answer these calls from a cell phone, landline, or VoIP phone. However, if your user has multiple devices, the calls from the group will ring all their devices. Right? There's a user feature called Follow Me. Calls from the group will ignore that feature. They're just going to ring them all at the same time. Now, let's say call comes in. Let's say David answers the call that comes in, and a second call comes in. Under this setup, David could hear a call waiting beep until one of his colleagues picks up that second call. Now, if David can disable call waiting on the device itself, then he won't hear that beep. Which would be kind of recommended depending on how busy your groups are. Now, let's say I wanted to change the order. Let's say Michael, I know, has the most free time. Let's say David's on a special project, right? So I clicked and dragged and changed the order a little bit in terms of the up and down. But right now, they're all still ringing all. But if I click distribute again, now Michael's first, right? Likewise, I can do that. I can click redistribute again to change the order. All right, groups can have their own extension numbers as well as their own phone numbers, right, like we have here. You can add from spare or buy new, so they can have multiple phone numbers. Now, a phone number on a group, right, it's not a main number or an auto attendant number. So that means it doesn't have hours of operation or holidays, right? It's going to be available 24/7. All right. Groups can have features. The first one here is ring back. So by default, when a call comes into the group, right, it starts ringing your staff members, and the inbound caller will hear that ringing sound once we get it from the device we're trying to reach out to, right? So if I'm ringing an order, right, let's say Michael is that first person, right? Once the system hears that Michael's phone is ringing, that's the sound that gets transmitted back to the inbound caller. If I don't want that, I can instead enable ringback and then upload a media file, right? .mp3, .ogg, .wav, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Right, so upload the file and then save changes. So now when the system is sending back the ringing sound from Michael's phone to the customer, it replaces that with this media file. The only potential downside is if for some reason Michael's phone is not returning that ringing sound, there's nothing for the system to replace, so the inbound caller just hears silence. Next action, when you enable this, it's what do you want to do if no one picks up the call? Got to pull down here, You can send them back to your virtual receptionist. Now, notice I have Spanish here under advanced call flows, right? That's because I enabled that one to be available in main menu. So now I can send, this is now an option, right? If I had left the Spanish auto attendant as unavailable in main menu, this wouldn't be here. I can send the calls to one of my call queues. I can send calls to a specific device. I can send callers to a specific user, or I can send them to a voicemail box. And then click on Save Changes. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means your users can make use of call forwarding. That means they can send calls to their cell phones instead of their normal desk phones. And then caller ID prepend. This allows you to put either text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones, right? Gives them a heads up about what the call might be about. All right, the Numbers tab starts you off on your numbers in use, right? So you can know where they go. Got the little gear icon, so you can update caller ID, E911, or Prepend. Spare numbers, these are the numbers you're not using. Now, if you don't want these numbers on your account any longer, and thus you want to, say, reduce your phone bill, click on the box in front of the numbers, for example, and now I have this option here to delete. Click delete numbers, confirmed, and now they're removed from my account. And so now I save a little bit on my bill each month. Now I can buy numbers here, just like this under main number, right? Local and toll free, right? It would just add them as a spare number. Right now, if we go back to groups, for instance, under numbers, right? I could add from spare or buy new, and it would add it directly to the group, right? Numbers, under the spare numbers tab, you're just adding it as a pool of numbers you're going to draw from later. So for instance, you know your company is going to expand into a new market, like new geographic location. You can then add numbers or multiple numbers from that area. So that way, when you have facilities there, you say, oh, we already got a number here, right? You got it ahead of time, so you don't have to worry or scramble for it later. There's also the option to port a number. What this means is you're moving a number from one carrier to another carrier. So say from AT&T to VirtualPBX, you would just basically follow the on-screen instructions. The main thing is we need a copy of your bill within the last 30 days. You need to fill in the address and the phone numbers you're porting. Then you're going to need to supply a letter of agency, LOA. Now, in this process, there's an option to download a blank one, right? Then you would just need to fill it out and sign it, and then upload it to the system, right? Scan it in, upload it, and then you submit the form, or forms, I should say. Once you do it through the system, you'll get an automated email saying, yes, we got it. You should get a second email from our porting team letting you know, yes, we really did get it, and yes, we processed the request, right? That second email lets you know a human being looked at your documents and then processed it completely. In general, toll-free numbers take about 3 to 5 business days if everything is correct. Local numbers average about 2 to 3 weeks, give or take. If we get a rejection, our porting team will pass that on to you. Normally, it's somewhat generic. Like we'll get address mismatch. They may not tell us that it's the street number is wrong or the zip code is wrong. They'll just say address mismatch, right? Or authorized user mismatch, meaning the person who signed for it wasn't actually the person on the other end who was supposed to sign for it. The LOA does need to be signed, whether that's a digital signature or you printed it out, signed it manually, and scanned it back in. All right, users. Shows your users on the account. Little gray person means they're a standard user. The little blue suit means they're a system admin, meaning they can do all the things we're doing here. Up here at the top is where you add a user. You enter first name, last name. The email address used for login, that needs to be unique for each user, right? You can't reuse email addresses. You create the password for them. You enter in the extension number, right? You can enter in whatever extension number you want. I do recommend making use of 4-digit extensions. By default, the system will create an email or voicemail box, for this user that's intrinsically tied to the user. So for instance, if I created this user and I added a Yealink phone, right, and it's on their desk, that user could pick up that Yealink phone, dial *98, and that logs them directly into their voicemail box. And since the user, that phone is tied directly to that user, it goes right to their specific voicemail box. At that point, the system will direct them to create a PIN number for their voicemail box and then walk them through recording their voicemail greeting. Here's your option to be in the user directory. You can always change that later. Now this option here, the third one, right, send emails to an alternate address. So let's go back a little bit. By default, the email address used for login, that is what the system will use to email the user, right? So voicemails will go to the email address used for login, password resets, right? Those sorts of things. Now, if you don't want that, or the user doesn't want that, they instead want it to go to a different email address, then you would click this third option here and enter in a different email address. This is something you can also change later. And then lastly, right, send credentials to the user. So that way they get an email with their login information so they can log in at dash.virtualpbx.com. If you only need to create one user, you click on Create User. Otherwise, if you need to add more, create user and add another. Once the user is created, you can click on their name and you can change their name. Here you have the option to change their credentials, right? So you can change their email address or password right there. You can also send them the password reset email if for some reason they're having trouble doing so on the website. Oh, oops. Let's go back. You can change the user to be an admin. You can change their time zone, right? So if you have remote workers. This is the display language for the web pages. So you can have English, French, German, or Russian. Here's your option to send to an alternate address. Here's your option to be in the user directory. Ringing timeout, measured in seconds, default is 20. This is how much time the system will offer calls to a user's devices. 20 seconds is plenty of time to a landline or a VoIP phone. It may not be enough time to a cell phone, right? In general, it takes longer to send calls to a cell phone than it does to, say, a landline, right? Basically, when we send calls out to those types of telecoms, right? Call goes out to a landline telecom goes, oh, we know exactly where that is, sends the call through, right? We send call out to cell phone telecom, they say, hold on a second, we need to find them first. They ping the cell phone towers, they find you, then say, okay, now send the call through, right? That delay, right, trying to find you is why you might need a longer ring duration for your users. Users can have multiple extensions if you want them to, right? They can have their own phone numbers, right? Buy new numbers, add from spare. Again, these phone numbers, like in groups, work 24/7. Right? Devices, you can add devices to a user, right? You can add from spare. The soft phone, when you add it to a user, this is the main difference. Right here at the bottom, it says use third-party application. You can click that to say use VirtualPBX application. Now, in this case, right, it's saying that the email address I have for Aaron here, he already has a soft phone somewhere, right? So he might be on multiple accounts. So the system won't let me. Let's see if I can find. So let's go to Cody here. All right, I click that. All right, I click on Create Device. And then once I click Save Changes, Cody's going to get an email that's going to have his login information for his VirtualPBX soft phone. The VirtualPBX soft phone uses its own credentials, right? Different than your Dash login. That email will also have download links for the relevant apps. to use. The other thing it's easier to add here among devices is the web phone. Right, the web phone has a login, but it reuses your dash login. All right, so you would just click on create device, save changes. And so now Aaron can go to webphone.virtualpbx.net, use his normal dash login, and then log into that page, and then he can make and receive calls as long as he's using Chrome or Firefox. All right, user features. Caller ID, this only works for users that have their own phone number. And what you're saying is that when you enable this, their own personal phone number is what's going to show up as their outbound caller ID from their VoIP phone instead of the main company number, right? That 408 number. Call forwarding, this is a feature your users can turn on themselves, right? Because this is available in the user portal. It's also available via feature codes on the VoIP phones, right? But basically, you select the type of device, you put +1 area code and phone number, click on Save Changes. Failover mode is for VoIP phone users. Basically, it means that if the VoIP phone becomes unregistered and a call comes into the user at that time, the system will automatically forward it to the phone number that's designated. Now, this phone number, whatever you're forwarding to, should not be a device on your user. So let's say Aaron here has this after hours number, right? This is a phone number, right? So I should not forward to that phone number because he already has it as a device. You essentially would create a loop if you do that. Hot desking is a VoIP feature. So if you make use of 4-digit extensions, I just say use the hot desk ID as their extension number, or their extension number as their hot desk ID. Click on Save Changes. Now, this is for a shared office environment or if people are on a hybrid schedule. So let's say Aaron comes into the office on Tuesday. He sits down at desk number 2. He picks up the VoIP phone there, hits *11. That turns on hot desking. The system asks him for his hot desk ID. He enters that. If there's a PIN number associated with it, he enters that. And then calls will be sent to him at the device he's sitting at for the rest of the day. End of his day, he picks up the phone again, hits *12 to turn off hot desking. Right. Next time Aaron comes into the office, someone's already sitting at desk number 2. He's like, whatever. And he sits over at desk number 17. Same thing, picks up the phone, hits *11, hot desk ID, and now calls are coming to him at that desk. All right, voicemail box, right? This is the voicemail box feature that you created with the user. Transcription, I believe, is still a plan-specific feature, and all it does is the system listens to the voicemail and tries to type it out for you as best as it can. Just bear in mind that if people mumble or there's a lot of background noise, it may not be able to get exactly what the person said. If you're interested in transcription, you're going to want to check with our account services team to see if you need to change plans for it. Now here, attach voicemail message to email, right? All that means is when the system sends a user an email saying, hey, you got a voicemail, it includes an attachment that they can double click on and listen to the file on their computer. It's an MP3 file. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. So if your users are not good about deleting messages, eventually their voicemail box will get full and people won't be able to leave the messages. So you could do this one here, right? Delete messages from this database after we send out the notification, right? That means once we send out that email saying, hey, you have a voicemail, the system deletes it from the system. That means the only way the users can check or listen to their voicemail is via email. Fax Box, users can have their own Fax Box if you want them to. Most of the time, it's not necessary. And then you have the option here to use a spare number, buy a single new phone number, or assign an extension. I recommend making use of phone numbers. That way that user can send and receive faxes. If you use an extension number, that means that user can only ever receive a fax, because the system will try to use that extension number as the outbound caller ID, and that will fail. Conference bridge, you enable it for the user, and then you just need to create a PIN number. And then click on Save Changes. Your users can change the PIN number themselves via the user portal. All right, Follow Me is for users with multiple devices. When you enable it, this is what it looks like. You have to tell the system which phones to use, right? So you uncheck under Do Not Ring, and then these are sliders that you can click and drag. Now, sort of like in ring groups, right? You have a timestamp of 120 seconds. You have the option to distribute, and you can change the order and then redistribute, and then click on Save Changes. Music on hold, right? Users can have their own music on hold if you want them to. You would just upload .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. For example, if you want your salespeople to have one kind of hold music, right? Probably talking about particular promotions, versus your tech support people would have a different set of music on hold. Customize call recording. When you first enable it, it looks something like this, right? You need to tell the system what kind of calls to record, right? So inbound internal means a coworker called, right, within the system. Right, inbound external means customer called in. Right, outbound internal means Aaron called another coworker. Right, outbound external means Aaron called back a customer. Now, every account includes some amount of storage as part of your plan price. If you go over it, there is an overage charge. For specifics of that, you would need to talk to your account services team. If you have heavy call volume and you're recording all your calls, you should look at getting an AWS account, Amazon Web Services, because you can link that to your Dash account and use AWS for your call storage, which is typically going to be cheaper, or it's very comparable at the very least. And do not disturb means you're putting a user on do not disturb, meaning they're not going to get calls. Right? Calls will go to voicemail. Voicemail boxes, right? Users have their own voicemail box. That's why they have that field is filled out. But you can create your own voicemail boxes if you need to, right? You just need to give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number, and then you click on Create Voicemail Box. Once a voicemail box is created, if you go to Advanced, under Media, right, you can upload a media file, right? So that way it has a voicemail greeting. The temporary file, this is for like your vacation or out of office. So if you have something selected here, it will supersede the media file, right, until you change the temporary back to none. The other thing for a voicemail box you create manually is you want to include a recipient, right? Your user voicemail boxes already have a recipient built in, right, the email address used for login. But the manually created ones, you would want to click Add New Recipient, put an email address, and then if you click Add again, you're adding a second email address. Otherwise, you just click Save Changes. Once you've done those two things, you can click on Already Set Up. And then if you want, delete after notification, right? Default will attach the messages to email. Advanced routing, this is where direct inward system access is, or DISA. This is not available for new signups right off the bat. That's something you'd have to request from our account services team. But what this does is allows you to call in from a cell phone or a landline and log into the system and then make an outbound call. When you make that outbound call, it's not your cell phone number that shows up on the outbound caller ID, but rather your main company number. All right, so first, once account services has enabled it, you enable it on your system here. It creates a PIN number for you. Now, that means this, at this juncture, you could set up as a menu option off of your virtual receptionist. I do not recommend that, right? You only have so many menu options. So then eventually someone's going to find that this exists, and then they'll try to figure out the PIN number if they're, of a nefarious kind of person. So I would suggest click Edit Settings and then add an extension number. Now the extension number you add, again, I recommend using something that's outside of your normal extension list, right? So this account started with extension 1000. So most of the extensions on the system start with 10, right? For DISA, I would want to do something different, right? Yeah, that's probably too many digits. Now this extension number is only something my staff members would ever know, right? And then I would click on Save Changes. So now when you call in, right, the person needs to know the extension number, right? So you enter in the extension number, then the system asks you for the PIN number, then you hear dial tone, and then you put area code and phone number, and then you make your outbound call. Now, when you make that outbound call, if we go back to the dashboard, right, it's this phone number that shows up as the outbound caller ID, not your cell phone. So yeah, if bad actors figure all this information out, they could make outbound calls on your account and you wouldn't know about it right away. Most people probably wouldn't know about it until they got their next invoice. One way to know about it would be the call logs. Here you see your call history, and today I can see that a couple calls were made outbound as well as one inbound. Right, little arrows tell me which way, right? Green arrow to the right, inbound. Yellow arrow to the left means outbound. You can click on it to get more detail. So here I can see Mike Hull. Here he made an outbound call from his VoIP phone, right? So that's a legit outbound call. I don't worry about it. Right, VPBX test here, also from a web phone. Again, device on the account. Don't have to worry about it. You can also click on the inbound to see where it went. You can download this file. It's just a CSV file. I can see calls for this week as well. Not that there's a lot of difference. If I go to this month, there'll be more, right? I can scroll down. Let's see if I can find. Oh, a lot of outbound calls. But again, from a soft phone, so I don't have to worry about it. So here you see the inbound call and what device it went to. Little fire hydrant icon here, right? This will create an email that will go to our support team. It's going to have the technical details of the call. I would recommend that you type in the body of the email what you experienced or what you were expecting to happen versus what did happen. Gives us an idea of what happened. A custom, you can set your date range, right? So I could go back to February and download the February calls down here. Now, in the call logs, you can go back 1 year and download all your call logs. If you need call log information for compliance reasons, I would suggest you do that every month. Just that way, it's an easy way of naming the files, and you don't have to worry about losing any days of the year. Our engineering team can go back an additional 6 months, right? So they can go back up to 18 months, but after that, the call data is lost, right? It's completely removed from the system. If you have very heavy call volume, you might need to go week by week in terms of your call log data. It can sometimes take a long time to load up. All right. Feature codes, I've talked about a couple of these, but these are basically ways for your VoIP phone users to access different features of Dash directly from their phone. This is also on our support pages, so you don't have to log in to see the feature codes. Also on the support pages, there's a document called the Phone Commands Cheat Sheet, which has the feature codes as well as a brief description of which each one is, or how to use each of them. All right. Go here. Next up is Blacklists. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system. All right, so you would click Edit Blacklists. You would click Add to create a new list. You give it a name, right? Like block list, right? Your first choice here, are you blocking anonymous calls? This means if we're not getting valid inbound caller ID, we're blocking the call if you turn this on, right? Beyond that, you click Add Number. You put +1, area code, and phone number. No parentheses, no dashes, no spaces. And for each phone, you just click Add for each phone number you want to add to the system. When you're done, you click on Save. Right, you go back to Settings, and then you make sure your list is over here to the right under Selected, and then you click Update. So now every phone number that I have listed under my block list, right, whenever they call any of my numbers, whether they're already on my system or I add them in 5 years from now, right, any number that's on my block list, when they call one of my main phone numbers, they get a busy tone. They're not getting through. And that's an included feature of Dash. Faxes, this gets to your Fax Box manager. So you can get to any of your fax boxes on the account. And let's see if I can. Looks like I don't have any inbound. Oh, here we go. So on an inbound fax, you can see the date and the time, where the fax came from, right? The target number, meaning which number it was going to, number of pages. You can download the file, and you can also see the details, which in this case, there won't be that much just because it's a completed fax. Under outbound faxes, same setup, right? You have to find the fax box. Now here we have a failure, but we see the date, the time, the number that he went to, number it came from. You can download the file, but if you click on the details here, you can scroll down and there's no endpoints. Basically, there's something wrong with that phone number. It could be that there wasn't an actual fax machine at the other end, for example. Sometimes you see things like user busy, right? Busy tone, that sort of thing. So any failure you see under outbound fax tab, that means we had a problem communicating with the other fax machine. Right? If we go to email to fax logs, these failures, that means the system had a problem processing the request in some fashion. So if we go to this one here, little eyeball icon, here we go. And we see I have these errors of no valid attachment. So this would be, I'd have to talk to this person going, what did you try to fax? Like what kind of document? And the system only accepts PDF or TIFF. So pretty easy to see. The other thing you could see is someone used like their personal email address versus their work email address. So then it would come up the user wasn't found. Number Manager, this takes you to your spare numbers tab. Reports, this actually takes you to advanced reporting. So advanced reporting is a plan-specific feature, right? Available on some plans and not others. This allows you to create your own reports. If you're interested in this, you'd want to check our YouTube channel. Under videos, we have an advanced reporting demo, so you can see some of the things that you can do. But again, that's a plan-specific feature. The voicemail manager, right? You can go to any of your voicemail boxes. Right, you can see the messages here, date, time, phone number, duration. You can listen to them, download them. As an admin, if you click on the box here, you can move them to a different voicemail box. The main thing you would use this for is to delete messages, though, from a voicemail box that's full. All right, Acd Queues. Acd stands for Automatic Call Distribution. It's a call center feature. This is an upgrade to existing plans. So it's possible you may need to change plans and then have an upgrade fee associated with it. To be absolutely certain, you'd want to double check with our account services team. I'm going to click here to just adjust the settings of an existing queue. But when you create a queue, you just need to give it a name, and then you choose whether it's going to have a phone number or an extension number. And then you decide on the routing strategy. Round robin equalizes out over time. You have most idle, which means whoever has been waiting the longest gets the next call. The standard queues have ring all, meaning it rings everybody at once. There's least calls, which means least amount of connected calls. Right, so Bob has 2, Mary has 5. Under least calls, Bob gets the next call. Right. Then there's least offers, which is the combination of missed and connected calls. So whoever has the least lesser amount gets the next call. Hold treatment, which is kind of cut off here, but you can upload your own file, right? .wav, .mp3, etc. Queue timeout, this is measured in seconds. This is how much time people wait on hold. The queue call limit is how many people you're allowing to wait on hold. Now, this is on top of people who are already talking to your staff members. Right, so I have it set to 4, but if you change this to 0, that means there's no limit. Timeout immediately if empty. If this is enabled, that means if I have no staff members logged in and a call comes into the queue, the system will treat that call as if it already hit 3,600 seconds. Escalation call flow after timeout. So after that 3,600 seconds, what do I want to do with the call? You select from the pull down, right? You can none, right, ends the call, but you can send it to a ring group, a user. You can send it back to the main menu. You can send it to another queue, etc. Zero out call flow basically allows your inbound callers to press 0. And if they do so, where are you sending them? Right? And the pull down options are there. Agent behavior, agent recovery timeout measured in seconds. Right, basically this is after an agent is done with a call, how long before the system offers them a second call from the queue. Force away on reject or missed. If this is enabled, that means if an agent misses a call, the system puts them in away mode automatically. The user would then have to mark themselves available to take a call. Agent connect timeout measured in seconds is 20, is the default because on queues, you can only accept calls with a VoIP phone, right? So SIP phone, soft phone, or even the web phone. Once a queue is created, you want to click on the little members icon here, right? Person with a headset. This list of people are the people who I can put into queues, right? So they're available to be in a queue. If I click on manage members, right, that list shifted over here to the right. The list on the left are people that are not yet assigned to a queue. Right, now if I want to move them to a queue, I just click on their name, click add as member. And now Josh there can be one of my queue members. Then I would go back to queues. And if I click on a queue here, right, I click add agents. And whoever I want to be in the queue, I just click and drag and move them over. And then I can click add managers. I can select from my staff members that I've already assigned to this queue to be a manager. For your staff members, right, they would log into dash.virtualpbx.com. They would select Acd Queues. And then they would click on begin session. They need to select their VoIP device that they want to use. Right? They need to select a specific one, click on that handset again, and then they would mark themselves as ready. And so now you'll see here, right, I'm a little green bar next to my name. That means I'm ready to take calls. If I'm dark blue, that means I'm on an inbound call. If I'm on light blue, that means I'm being offered a call. If I am red, that means I've marked myself away. If I'm on yellow, that means I'm on an outbound call or external call, right, outside of the queue. And if I'm gold, then I'm on recovery time from a queue call. Right, so I'd mark myself away, for instance, when I would go to lunch, right, or I need to go to the bathroom, right? At the end of my day, I would click on end session. Now, once a user is added to a queue, right, they no longer have a D&D toggle up here at the top. Dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. This allows me to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for my VoIP phones. We'll click Edit here. So you give it a name, like in this case, I chose 408. Then you select the phone number on your account, right? So I selected this 408 phone number. And then I choose, am I using a feature code? Or in this case, I'm just using the area code. What I'm saying here is whenever my staff members dial a 408 phone number, their outbound caller ID will automatically change to match this 408 number up here that I've selected. Right. The alternative is this one here, where my users would have on their VoIP phones hit *550, then enter area code and phone number that they're calling. When they do that, the system knows to change their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. Right. Oops. Now, this feature code, if you're making use of the feature code option, we recommend making use of star and then 3 digits, right? So that way you're not interfering with the feature codes that are built into the system already. Monitor is another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members, right? Doesn't matter what VoIP phone they're using, or phone they're using actually, right? You'll see what devices are in use. You can see who's available, who's busy. If there are active inbound calls, right, they would show up here with terms of who they're going to and on what device. If there's a parked call, they'd show up here with the parking spot number. Recording Manager, this will take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com, which just uses your dash login, and that's where you would view your call recordings. Right? You can listen to them, download them, and delete them from your account. If you link your AWS account, then when you click on the Recording Manager, it will take you to your AWS account so you could see the recordings there. Webhooks, this is plan specific. You'd actually want to talk to our sales team. But what Webhooks does is allow you to link Dash to other software, right? So you would click New Hook, and you would fill this out. This is essentially a kind of programming, so it'll be on me. But essentially what you're trying to do is you create the rules in which Dash is looking for, and then you're linking it on the other side to some other piece of software, like Zapier, for example, or AutoCode. There's a couple others. Now, we do have a webinar on our YouTube channel. It's Introduction to Zapier, right? So it will talk about webhooks extensively there. So I would encourage you to watch that if you're interested. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code and other examples of what we have linked Dash to, so you have a better idea. And then lastly, the user portal. Every user on your account has their own user portal. You're not going to be able to access it, right? You, as an admin, you can access anything, right? But you can't access the actual user portal for each person. Right, so here I can see my own voicemails. I can listen to them. I can download them. If I put a check mark, right, then I have the option to mark it as new, listened, or for deletion. I have a call history tab, so I can see the calls I have made or received. Right, I can change the date range. If I had my own fax box, I would see my fax history. The contact list tab, right, just shows my Dash account information. Right, so other users, the ring groups, the queues, etc. Conference tab. So over here to the right, this is where my users would change their moderator PIN as well as their participant PIN number. I can choose if my people joining my conference are muted or deafened when they first come in. All right, also the options for entry and exit tones. When you're in a conference, here you can invite other Dash users to your conference. Here you can lock a conference so other people can't join, mute everybody, unmute everybody, and the conference call. Also, while you're in a conference, participants will have little icons, so you can mute a specific person, for example, or kick them out. The Settings and Devices tab. This is where your users enable their own call forwarding. Right, and +1 area code and phone number, click Save. and they can also see the status of their devices. All right, and that is everything. So, and I don't see any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Again, we'll be here every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. We do record these, so you can view them at your leisure or share the link to other staff members who need to be admins. But beyond that, I thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.